Universe on Earth site is back up. We just had some technical things this last week that we were doing.
Okay. Hey everybody, how you doing? How are my starseeds and lightworkers? Welcome to Quantum Portals and the Starseeds and Lightworkers Collective. And this evening we'll be speaking with Krystal Kelley from the Universe on Earth project. And I am so excited to have her come back. For those of you who are older members, you will remember she came last year and she was here with her friend and collaborative, Miss Alder Sherwood. And they spoke about the project that they were working on. And especially they were talking about how we are entering a phase where right now people are getting ready and people are getting comfortable with the idea of contact with different beings, contact with alien beings, contact between different groups of people and different extraterrestrial groups. So it's becoming something that's a lot less fringe compared to, let's say, 5, 10 years ago. And it's becoming accepted. As well, in the last year or two, people have also been exposed to a lot of the hearings that have been taking place in Washington, D.C. regarding UAPs, as they're called, or UFOs, for those of you who are old timers, and how UAPs are affecting well, for example, the military or affecting planes, pilots, that sort of thing. Personally, I find that a lot of it has been more militarized. But I think that what's important is to remember the humanity behind it and to remember the galactic influence behind it, because it's really about peace. It's about having peaceful connections, peaceful relations with other beings and our galactic family, because we do have an extended family out there and we're not alone. We never have been. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Miss... without further ado, I'd like to introduce Miss Krystal Kelley to the show. And let's go. All right, Krystal, how are you doing? Krystal and Krystal.
Right. Well, yeah, both crystals.
Together.
It's so awesome to come back and chat with everybody, give you updates about what we're doing. Our Universe on Earth project is it's underway. We are, yeah.
Sorry. Are we on? Are we live? there's something. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Starseeds and Lightworkers Collective. So, as usual, we often have technical difficulties, but this time we managed to get through that. So, thank God, here we are. And so, for those of you who are just joining us, we had Krystal Kelley come on the show last year, and she introduced us to the Universe on Earth project that she was working on. And basically, that project is to raise awareness to raise awareness about the fact that we are not alone in the universe, that we have our galactic cousins that are reaching out to us, and that we've reached a level and a point in humanity where we are able to finally have that contact and to extend that family connection. So we are looking forward to doing that. And Krystal was really, really instrumental in presenting that information last year, because in the last year or two, as you know, there have been a lot of congressional hearings in the United States and DC about UAPs or UFOs, for those of you who are old timers. And there's a lot of talk about how some of these UAPs were affecting military and other types of, flying, and different types of members of the government were coming out and talking about this. And so it was nice to have a refreshing take on this with the universe on Earth, because instead of talking about it from a military perspective, they were talking about it more from a peaceful contact, peaceful connection, reconnection with our cosmic family. Because as you know, we've never been alone on this planet. We've never been alone, and they've always been there. And so finally, we're at a point in history where we can hopefully make that contact once and for all. So it's a real pleasure to have Krystal come back. Krystal and Krystal. It's nice to have Krystal come back and to share with us a little bit more information about the Universe on Earth project, as well as to discuss what she's been working on and what they've worked on further since we've last spoke with her. So without further ado, Krystal, thank you. Thank you for dealing with all the technical difficulties, and welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Of course. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me back. And I guess I think to start it off, talking about Universe on Earth, it really started with a group of us who had a collective dream that was similar, but had the same intention of kind of taking disclosure into people's hands. It felt as if disclosure by governments is obfuscated.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, yes, we have these whistleblowers, and it's wonderful to hear the things that come out of the military, but these these contact situations across history don't usually happen with military. I mean, it does happen with military, but it very, very, very often happens just with like a normal person who has this encounter and they really don't know what to do about it. They don't know who to talk to. And so we really wanted to go out and seek people who had contact stories. And that's kind of how Universe on Earth started. And so what we did last year is we spent about half of the year doing these alien open mics where we would invite communities, whichever community we traveled to, and we went kind of up and down the West Coast. We went to the Bermuda Triangle. We tried to get as far reaching as we could in like a small budget project.
Mm-hmm.
But everywhere we went in these communities, we were trying to go to like UFO hotspots, places that we knew people had contact repeatedly, like that we had heard stories and folklore and, different things. And when we were in these communities, we would ask people to come and share their stories, which we had an overwhelming amount of people share stories. And then we would try to stay in the community for as long as we could, a couple days or a couple weeks. And we would try to go to these specific locations and do our own type of investigation where we would ground with the energy there. We would connect with the spirits there. We would see what would happen. And so, needless to say, we had a 6-month wild ride of a lot of things that happened and were extremely I would say at one point, I remember almost every day, I thought my mind was being blown. Like it just, but what was really happening is I feel like our hearts were being opened wider and wider to these possibilities and to our own contact. I mean, I have lots of contact experience, which is kind of why I wanted to connect with other people. But at the same time, those experiences were getting deeper and deeper, and we found our intuition heightening more and more. Um, Dreams were coming alive. I mean, I have these instances now where I'll be dreaming kind of half awake, half asleep, and an answer or something that I need for maybe my own body comes to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll give one example. This just happened just this last week.
Mm-hmm.
I had like a stuffy nose. I had come down with a cold. I just traveled back from Rome. And that's a whole nother contact story. But you kind of get sick when you travel,
Mm-hmm.
and I got woken up because my sinuses were like hurting, and it woke me from my sleep, but I was still sleeping, but I was conscious of this hurting. And as I was sleeping, I felt this like tingling at the top of my head. And in my sleep, I thought, oh, I'm gonna like scratch my head. And then before I knew it, I was taking both of my hands and scratching the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And right as I thought, this is strange. Why am I doing this in my sleep? The whatever the stimulation at the top of my head did, it's like it put this energy down and my
Mm-hmm.
sinuses instantaneously cleared.
Wow.
And I went to sleep and I slept for like 5 more hours and I woke up really refreshed. And I don't know, my dreams are telling me things
Mm-hmm.
that I even needed, that I don't know where I pulled that knowledge from, but
Mm-hmm.
something is guiding and something's pointing to things that are very useful. I mean, even in our everyday lives, like I, I it was quite remarkable. I just never had anything like that happen. And even happen in the middle of my sleep, so we've really found that going through these experiences, we've just been connecting more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like it's this work that we've been doing. So where we're at with Universe on Earth is we are in post-production of these 11-minute episodes from each of our kind of experiences that we had on the road. And we're hoping that we have that out by this summer. That's kind of our goal. But that's, just one of the things we've kind of been doing behind the scenes is working on the post-production of that. And we're really excited to share it when it finally launches. But then in the meantime, and this kind of goes back to in 2021, I visited Egypt. And I was there for a month. I was there from November until December. And this was an initiation that I had when I was there. It was a calling that I had to go there. And when I was there, I had this download of this course that I was supposed to write or develop. And I didn't quite know what it was for. I knew all the parts of it, but I didn't know what it was for. And when I would ask guidance what it was for, I was told repeatedly, you will know exactly what and when you need to bring this out. And so as we've been going through this post-production, I realized that part of the issue of when people have contact experiences is they're not ready. It comes out of the blue. They either suppress the memories because it was so much ontological shock that they can't process it. And so I realized that this download that I had when I was in Egypt was for preparing people to get ready for contact. And so I developed this course called the Mind Matrix, and it's preparing for ET contact. And so what it is it's a blend of conscious mind training and cosmic initiation. So it kind of comes down to the idea that what if preparing for extraterrestrial intelligence isn't so much about looking outward in the skies or seeing something, but looking within. And you know, if our mind and our nervous system aren't prepared, then we might either miss it or short circuit when that does happen. And that's when you kind of repress your memories. I had my first contact experience in 1996, and I knew it happened in the back of my mind, but I pushed it so far in the back that it wasn't until 2007, so 11 years later, that I realized what had happened. And this course allows people to prepare so that when they don't lose all those years, because I think about like, oh, what if I had been prepared back then? And what, could I be, who knows what? But I just think that from all this experience that I have, I want to give people these tools so that they don't lose that time and that they are prepared when it happens. And I do believe things are happening at an accelerated pace, but also as things are accelerating, we need to slow down. So we really need to ground and start working on that energetic system, on our own internal energetic systems to get you contact ready. And not just as like a witness, like, oh, I caught it on my iPhone or something like that, but conscious participant in this cosmic shift.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why it was really important for me to do this work and why I'm excited to share it. I understand that not everyone is ready for this. This is something that, if you are ready, then you know when you're ready. And so I just want to say that there are multiple modules in this course, and maybe some of them you might be ready for, and maybe some of them you might not yet be ready for. But the way I broke it down is I have the full course, and then I have the modules as just individual little courses. So
Okay.
if you don't feel fully ready for the big leap, say, um, then you can work on things like energetic shielding or core fear removal. I have a big part of it is dissolving your fear. So,
Okay,
you
great.
know, removing those core fears, and quieting the ego is another, and really also strengthening our heart field. That is one of the biggest energetic things that we can do to kind of push forward, with our galactic family. They really It helps us attune to, our multidimensional awareness.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. So, I just wanted to sort of take a moment to just sort of roll back a little bit here. So,
mhm,
last year, and this is just a sort of a recap because last year when you came, as I'd mentioned at the beginning, you came and you explained what the universe on Earth was, and that was great. And what I was trying to say at the time is that it's really important, especially right now, because as you pointed out, we are entering a very different phase of humanity. And if you guys have caught me on the show a number of times, I've often said that this year, between this year and in 2027, are going to be very, very important years for humanity as a whole. And it's going to be not only changes on the planet, but also changes in terms of definite contact. That is coming out. Everybody that's talking about is talking about, especially 2027. I know that Bashar talks about that. I know a lot of astrologers are talking about that. It's also in our stars that our contact is going to come. But before all that happens, I just want to sort of go to dive back into what we were talking about with the universe on Earth. So what's interesting about the project that you have, as opposed to, let's say, and there's nothing wrong with working with MUFON. There's nothing wrong with those kinds of groups, but I think that MUFON has changed. That, I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole politics of it, but I know that we talked about it last year. You, me, and I think Kevin from
Australia.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
from Primas on Mars was talking about how MUFON had changed and that there was a lot of ex-military in that as well. So a lot of things have been hijacked, and that's sort of where we were last year when we were talking about this. And I know I've seen some of your videos where you're talking with Whitley Strieber, you're talking with Daryl Anka, and what I like about your project is that you're taking a very different approach. Like like we were saying, more of the human approach, less of the sort of the. And I mean, yes, you do have a group and people can join, but it's more of I would say a family as opposed to congressional hearings, which has been very, very militarized. And I understand that the military, and it's important because the military has to come out and deal with it. They have to come out of the closet, as the
Right.
celestial closet, as it were. But I don't think MUFON was really the I don't think MUFON was the group that was going to do it. I think that they were, yes, civilian, and they were looking at different things, and so it was very, very anecdotal. But the anecdote, and like you said, oh, I caught something on my iPhone. That's nice, but I think we've come just a little too far for that now. So that for me was where we were last year, and I think that we had sort of said, okay, we talked about that. And then there is the fact that people are getting downloads, and a lot of people who otherwise would not be getting, and I get that too. I get the tingling on my head. I've gotten that where I got tingling and I'm like, oh my god, what is this? And I literally feel the energy sort of coming down. And so a lot of people are talking about that, reporting that. And so a lot of people on planet are the energy and the downloads coming in from the galaxy are changing our DNA. So that's what's happening. And so that's also shifting us and getting us ready. So that's sort of, again, like that's sort of where we left off last year. So this year with the course, could you kind of I know you broke it down a little bit, but
Mhm.
with the course that you're going to be creating, and this is a part of the topic tonight, is how to connect. Let's sort of go from, if it's okay with you, we can go from like step by step. So, in the first module, this is what we'd be looking at. The second module is what we'd be looking at, and obviously meditation plays a very, very big role because meditation helps to
Mhm.
still the mind and to even to connect with that. But could we just sort of just go over some of the modules and the toolkit that's going to be used when you present this course?
Mhm. Yeah. So, let's see. I there was something. Oh, one thing I wanted to say about kind of where we're at. I do think it's important to stay tuned in to the government disclosure.
Okay.
I don't think, like, I don't want to say it's not important because I do think it's important, but I think that this individual and collective work we can do together is more important. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean?
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely. Yeah, no, not to ignore it, but to just sort of say, well, not to just rely on it alone, and then that's it. We're left with an empty cup.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So over this course, I created something that I call neural alchemy, and it's a fusion of like subconscious reprogramming, alchemizing energy work, and soul remembrance. And so each module it includes a guided meditation, an activation, or a meditative activity. And I did put each module in an order, but it's also okay to do these out of order because every we live within, a quantum field, and we want to tap into where we each individual person needs to be. So there might be a module that you maybe have already mastered, or you're not ready for it, even though most people do that first. It's like the same idea as like when babies walk. Some babies crawl first, some do, like the army crawl. They all make their own way to get to walking, but it's not always exactly the same. So as we're going through this process, um, it doesn't have to be linear, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But each module itself would be linear within itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so each module has subconscious clearing and intention setting, light body and nervous system tuning, and practices for heart coherence, shielding, and multidimensional alignment. The modules work with transmissions, like I mentioned, the core fear removal for contact anxiety and past life trauma. Sometimes our fears are not from this lifetime. Sometimes we need to go deeper. Um,
So,
we also work with meta practice to radiate benevolence. Um,
so
humans,
can I just sort of ask? Sorry, sort of jump in there.
yeah,
I just want to sort of wonder when you're talking about the clearance and you're talking about getting rid of fears. What kind of tools are you using in terms of fear? And like, what are we talking? Because it's true, we can carry fear from other lifetimes and we bring it with us, or we have fears, that we've inherited in our childhood, and that could be an issue. But usually, from what I've heard, when people have had contact with different beings, when a being senses your fear, they have a tendency to actually kind of pull back. Sometimes not.
yes,
If you're Whitley Strieber, no. But
yeah.
like, I
Oh
mean,
no, he's the first one to say that his fear gets in the way.
Okay.
He's had to work on this a lot. The It's true, when your fears start surfacing, that's when your telepathy breaks down, when you kind of become not as much of an antenna. It's more difficult to break through if
Yeah.
you have fear. You need to have higher levels of vibration than fear or anxiety.
Yeah.
Um,
That kind of
and
explains
so
why they're trying to dumb down, like with all the internet and with all the anxiety.
yes.
That explains why they're doing that, especially with young people, because they know that this is coming, and so they're trying to
Mhm.
block it. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt there, but like it's kind of what's happening
Oh
right now.
no, I mean all of our all of our legacy media, not
Mm-hmm.
things like what you guys are doing, but
No,
our
no.
legacy media is focused on fear. I
Yeah.
mean, my background is TV news, and I know like I mean, we used to say if it bleeds, it leads. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like if you have a gory or traumatic story, that's the first thing that leads the news. And you know, it just subconsciously we are being programmed to be fearful of things constantly in our lives. And so the core fear removal is really about um meditation. And it's a guided meditation. And that one particular module is one that you could do multiple times a month if you wanted, or you know, anytime fear starts creeping into your decision making, you need to become aware, wait, why did I do that? Oh my gosh, I did that because I was afraid of the outcome or afraid of what someone might think or you know, afraid of something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making a decision based on that, you need to step back into your own being and ask yourself why you're afraid of that, and is the fear even real?
Mm-hmm.
And so this guided meditative practice in the modules. And like I said, each one is paired with a guided meditation, and it's a video. I spent about 3 months doing a video for every single module, and I really wanted it to be personal so that like these are all modules of things that like I do on a not each one on a daily basis, but whenever I need to, I will use these things as tools in my life. These are things that I actually do, and I've seen a lot of other people have amazing what do you call it?
Well, I guess results with them, right? I guess if you're using
Yeah,
it,
results.
you
Thank you.
know.
I was just totally like blanking on the word.
No
No,
worries.
exactly. I so as this was being developed over the last few years, because it's been since 2021 that I've been working on it, but it hasn't been, no one's been ready for it, or there have been some people ready for it. And I had a beta group go through this. And I'll use one person as a case study. I'm not going to say his name because it doesn't matter. But he was retired and grew up in a very religious type of environment. And it seemed as if fear really revolved around his religion. And he wanted to break free from that because he wanted to know more than what he was programmed with. And after just about a week doing my modules and specifically the core fear removal, he texted me and said, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I am breaking out of the matrix." And that was one of the reasons why I named it Mind Matrix, was because of his comment to me. And he now is remote viewing. He's doing dream weaving. I mean, he's doing things that before were scaring him. Like the idea of remote viewing even frightened him, and now he's doing it. And so these it can become very empowering to release fears. But there's a lot more than just releasing fears to it. But I would say that's 99% of the people, that's probably the most important thing that they need to address. If that makes sense, to address fear. Um, and did that answer your question, Krystal? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. It definitely answered my question, and actually, I do have some questions here from the chat. So maybe when I sort of answer some of those questions, because I know some people
Okay.
are asking some questions here. And I have a question here. Well, actually, I have a comment here from Susie Karasik. She says, "Hi, Krystal. Great to see you. You look great. No dreads." But
Yeah.
but I have a question here from Mustafa Mas. He says here, I guess what we're talking about have to do with quantum physics or quantum jumping. I guess if we're looking at, I'm not really sure if I caught that correctly, the question that he has. But I have another question here from Penny. She says here, Krystal, does the mind course review what to expect in terms of appearance? And I'm wondering if Penny, you're
Mm.
talking about appearance in terms of like the 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 galactic beings that we're going to be meeting, that sort of thing. Did you want to comment on that, Krystal?
Yeah, this is a little bit more about preparing the energetic body and less about having expectations of what you're going to encounter. Um, I think the the most important thing is to remain open. Um, the way we see our galactic family is a little different than the way you and I see each other. You know, we we do have face-to-face encounters, and like you mentioned, I do agree with you. By 2027 we will be having open contact.
Yeah.
um and there are so many vastly different species on this planet right now
Yeah.
with us, like even in the room with me,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think appearance is something that we need to be thinking about to energetically get prepared. I think we need to have an open mind, but I don't go a lot into um, different types of beings or different things like that. I think that's a completely different course, if that makes
Yeah.
if that
Yeah, absolutely.
makes
And,
sense.
and in terms of also in terms of appearance, we often see those, well, the Star Trek movies or even the Star Wars movies where someone's in the cantina and they have a whole bunch of different types of groups of aliens and there's some playing and there's some this or some that. And it's funny because we watch those movies and we just take for granted that, yeah, there's going to be different beings out there. And I think that maybe back in the 70s when Star Wars and Star Trek were coming out, we sort of just had a very, very distant approach because it was like, well, that's just fantasy. But now this is when fantasy becomes reality, when life imitates art. And now here we are actually being faced with the idea of like, oh, we might find ourselves in the cantina one day and being faced with these different groups of beings. But if you'll notice in those movies, nobody seems to be freaking out. It's just sort of like, well,
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. And I think that it's sort of like when you go to a different country and you have different you meet different people with different customs. It sometimes can strike you as like, wow, that's weird or that's very different, but then it is what it is. But I think that also a course like yours is very important at this time because like you said, people need guidance, and I think that a lot of people are waking up. And I know that we've on this show have explored different people. We've had many different guests come and go on the show, and a lot of people talking about how they thought that they were weird because they were having all these experiences. We had a woman that came on the show, Rogue Yogi. She talked about how she was seeing portholes and all kinds of craziness. And she was able to see that. And now she's really come to terms with it because she realizes that it's not something that's evil or the devil, but rather it's something that was because she was just obviously attuned to be able to see that. And from what I understand, if you want to sort of comment, Krystal, but what I understand is that right now, in addition to the humans being affected with different energies, which is bringing us online, for example, a lot of our junk DNA is coming online, and it's not junk DNA, it's DNA that has been, dormant until the right time, right? You're not born a teenager, you're born a child, and after a while the pituitary gland kicks in and you
Mm-hmm.
start to go through puberty, and then you get your period or you get a beard or all that kind of stuff happens. Is because your body's ready to at that time to go into puberty. And so I see
Mm-hmm.
this as a sort of level of puberty where we've been dormant for many, many years, and now it's now coming online like, oh, my body's changing. But that being said, there's also a lot of talk about how, because of the changes that are happening energetically, the veil that has for the longest time been between the curtain between the third dimension and the fourth dimension is starting to thin. And
Mm-hmm.
so we are going to start to see a lot of stuff that we are not familiar with. And people are going to, like you said, the guy was doing these courses, and all of a sudden he's remote viewing, he's doing all this kind of stuff. It's because though that veil is thinning. Did you want to sort of comment on that a bit? Regarding the thinning and the change of energy.
Yeah, I think I do think that we are in a a consciousness shift, obviously. This is definitely has to do with consciousness. And it has so much to do with our biology as well. Like you said, our DNA. I mean, the fact that it was even called junk DNA
Yeah,
just tells you
stupid.
how we're being programmed,
Yep.
because there's nothing about us as humans that is junk.
No.
I mean, we are basically supercomputers living in a multidimensional world, and we didn't even realize it until recently, at least collectively. Um, and and that is one thing that I do want to kind of say about this like evolution is that um when I my first contact, like face-to-face contact, like I said, was in 1996, and I was on a ship and I was laying there paralyzed, and I asked these beings, I said, "What are you doing?" And telepathically, but that's what I said. And they said, "We're tinkering with your DNA." And this is in 1996. Not many people, at least that I knew, even mentioned DNA. And I remember thinking, DNA, DNA. Oh, that's what I'm made of. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
took me a second to process, like, what what is that? And I
Mm-hmm.
really do believe that the the increased plasma that we're getting from our sun, the electromagnetic grid on the planet, all of this, we're each little conductors. And as we get hit with plasma, as we walk on this earth in different locations, and we ground our energy and we get hit with this plasma, it is, without us even knowing, upgrading our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you don't know this is happening, it is happening.
Exactly.
It's happening. Um, but what happens is the mind shuts some things
Mm-hmm.
down. And that's why we need to break out of the mind matrix. Um, and and so we can almost be humans can be their own detriment sometimes when they use their mind too much. And it's a bit ironic, but the mind matrix is all about the heart, um, and the heart and mind coherence together.
Mm-hmm.
Those things together make such a powerful energetic field that if you are if you have the right tools, you can have these experiences. And some of them will be face-to-face contact. Each person individually comes from different star systems, um, different maybe planets, different dimensions. We all have DNA that is remembering all of those things of where we came from. And so in all honesty, we don't need to learn anything. This is really about remembering. And our DNA has all that coded into it. The things that I'm trying to show people is just a trigger to help you remember. It really isn't
It's a jump start,
anything
no?
probably. What's that?
It's to jump start, I guess, a lot of
The jumpstart, exactly.
yeah.
Because you can go through and you will get jump started in your life. But if you're really interested in this, I think these things can help you jumpstart
Mm-hmm.
and get ahead of it. And then what I see happening is it becomes like a ripple. So as people start releasing their fears, they're telling their kids, like, they're raising them differently to not
Exactly.
be so fear driven, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
or their friends or whatever, but it becomes a ripple, and less people need tools like this, and it just needs to
Yeah.
become a part of our
Exactly.
way.
Yeah, yeah,
if
and
if that makes sense.
absolutely, and it makes total sense. And what's interesting, and I want to sort of actually touch upon that point about how we're raising our children differently, because if you look at how we were raised, like, well, for myself, I'm Gen X, so we were raised in the '70s and '80s, and when I look back on how we were programmed. Oh my God, and just the whole sort of dogma and the oppression, the absolute
Mhm.
oppression of what it meant to be a functioning human being. And you talked about how it's really about the heart center. And what's interesting, especially with education, how we educate our children, is that those who are able to parrot the dogma that is put into school, those are the ones that get treated with, with all the benefits, the jobs and all that kind of stuff, is because you're able to sort of follow and to shut up and put up and to follow all that. And those kids that had answers, or who actually were thinking, were put down because they weren't following the dogma. And so now we're moving away from all that, and we're moving towards a situation where kids are, well, do we really need exams? We want to sort of follow what the kid wants to do and all that kind of stuff. So we're allowing children to really develop. And I think that that's going to be very crucial, because, as you know, children have an innate sense of psychic ability, but that starts to dissolve after the age of like 5 or 7. Why? Because that's when they start school, and that's when they start to sort of tamp that down. So it's interesting how we're going to have we have a lot more children who are going to these, alternative schools, as they call them, but these schools are allowing children to really develop. Imagine that child not having to be put up with all the dogma and eat all the garbage, and how that child is going to turn out. So that's going to be a whole new generation. But I want to sort of go back to what you're saying about, for example, the plasma that's hitting the planet. Now, as you know, there's been a lot of solar flare activity. The sun
Mhm.
has just been absolutely going crazy, and there's all this magnetic, pulse, and all this activity going on in the sun. And it's funny because in a couple of weeks we're going to be talking about it. We're going to be talking about it here on May 21st, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to be talking about 3 days of darkness, but that's more to do with the fact that the sun is going to change things on the planet. But anyways,
Hmm.
I
Well,
digress.
mhm. Well, and the pole shift.
Yes.
Our planet shifting poles is a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so we're going to be talking about that. So I would hope, please come back and join us on that at that time. But that's basically what's happening. And you touched upon the fact that we're all mini conductors, and that the sun is sending out all this energy, and it's affecting us, and that's what that is. And so I know that right now a lot of people are like, why am I going through all this anxiety? Why am I, and I think, in addition to obviously using the tools of meditation and breath work, that sort of thing, is to understand that we're also, it changes, it's all that magnetic interference is changing all the dogma. It's challenging all that. And so I think there's a lot of fighting going on, between
Mhm.
what we were taught and all this remembering. And so all this stuff is happening. And I think that, that might also be explaining why people are sort of like, why am I flipping out? Because it's,
It's
you know.
it can be very confusing. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I going back, one thing I wanted to say about the children is so um I have I have three children,
Mm-hmm.
two that are in their 20s and then a 10-year old.
What?
Yeah,
You
so
don't
so
look
I
it.
had them really far apart. I and and so but one thing that I notice is even though, and I've said this to my friends, I was like, even though all three of my kids are technically from the same generation,
Mm-hmm.
they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They they grew up in different times. So like my kids that are in their 20s, they for one thing, when they were in high school, it was COVID. And so they ended up having to deal with anxiety and these really heavy things that, like, I know when I was in high school, I didn't have to deal with those things.
Yeah.
They had friends, way too many friends for their age pass away for lots of different reasons, but mostly directly related to COVID, and not always getting sick, but maybe an overdose, but from the anxiety.
Yeah.
And so I know that, like, coaching my girls through that time was really eye-opening, because I remember thinking, oh, they're so young. Why do they have to deal with these really heavy things at this time in their life? But it's because they were ready for it. They're now in college. One of them's done with school, and I would say they're thriving. They're very open-minded, they're open-hearted. And one of my daughters, she does struggle with anxiety from time to time, but I feel like she knows there's tools, and she knows that she can get through it. And but then my younger daughter grew up with a device in front of her face. Not that not that I like her to be on her device a lot, but it's just the reality of what those kids
Yeah.
have these days.
Yeah.
And she has such a different experience than her sisters did growing up, but she's also, I'm going to say, really open and really knowledgeable about the universe and beings. I mean, she channels, we'll be somewhere and she'll say, Mom, do you want to know what they're saying? And I'm like, oh, who's here? And she'll be like, tell me beings that are there, and start telling us things. And it's just really natural for her. And I really hesitate to have her normally educated, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
like
No, no, for sure.
in the school system, because I don't want her to lose that.
Absolutely.
Like, I think that she's so open and so ready for contact, and
Exactly.
is actively, you know, talks to beings.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think when it comes to our kids, I feel like they were almost born with more advanced DNA than we were. Um,
Absolutely.
if that makes sense. I
Absolutely.
actually think it's interesting, because when I was going through this, I was like, who is this course for? And I think it's for, I mean, and maybe young people would find value in it, but I really think I'm 48, and I think it's for people around my age range, maybe a little younger, but older. Um, I think it's for the people that we need to rewire our subconscious, and really be in control of that subconscious mind. Um,
Oops.
sorry, I need to drink some water.
Yeah. But it's just interesting what you're saying about your daughter, because I can imagine being a parent. Well, I don't have children, but I can imagine being a parent and saying, I don't want, when I look back at my own education, I say to myself, if I did have children, I most definitely would not have had them put in, because I would not wish the kind of education. And I didn't have a bad education. I grew up in Canada. I was great.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in some death camp. I was very, very lucky to grow up here, and all that. But the just the type of dogma and the ridicule and being different and all that kind of stuff. And I think to myself, a lot of children say they talk with imaginary friends. What we don't know if those imaginary friends are actually beings getting through, and so that's what that is. And so a lot of children probably have this, but their parents are like, oh, no, 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 be quiet, you're just acting up, okay, never mind, that sort of thing. And that sort of dismissive approach, I hope, is really sort of starting to see its last days, because the children really need to have that ability to be open, and to have access to to an experience that allows them to develop those gifts. And I mean, thank God we are, because I do see other people where I work who have children, and they're sending their kids to these different schools. And I say, oh my God, I'm so jealous. I wish I had that as a kid, but whatever. And so I personally think that it's great as a course, that it can definitely appeal to children, especially because we want that generation to grow up having that freedom. Yeah.
Yeah. And so a couple of things that I just want to mention, that I had like made notes of, is that most contact protocols focus on CE5 or tech.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of focuses on you, your field, your beliefs, your fear matrix, and your intuitive channel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it blends science with sacred and helps you navigate altered states responsibly and in a very uh mindful way. So I really ask people to set their intentions clearly. So
Okay.
even if you end up wanting to do this module for different intentions, set your one intention very clearly when you do a module,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll get much further.
Okay.
Um, in because the universe understands clarity.
Mm-hmm.
The universe recognizes contracts. When you write something down, it's 90% done. Those things are very real in the quantum world even. And it really helps have that focus so that you're not overwhelmed when you do have these high frequency encounters, because I find that you're more grounded. And the other thing I was going to say is it's not really about chasing UFOs. It's about becoming the kind of human that an ET or an other dimensional or extra dimensional being wants to talk to.
Yeah.
Like, what value can you add to the quantum field? What is your heart telling you to do? What lights you up? What do you want to do in your day? Every day is sacred. We only have a limited amount of time in this dimension on Earth. And what do you really want to do? And that's what really comes out. And I feel like when people are truly living in that passion of like what they want to do, that's when they're attracting the beings that can either help them or give them more tools or just become friends with, like whatever it is you're seeking. That's when that stuff opens up. So it's really about becoming, you know,
Yeah.
when I was interviewing Daryl Anka, I remember he's like, if you're at a party and you see some people, you can tell if you want to talk to them. It's our galactic family is no different. If there's someone shrouded in fear and, you know, has this heavy energy around them, they're going to get passed by essentially
Yeah.
from a galactic person,
Mm-hmm.
or entity, because they don't want to deal with that. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's heavy human shit,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, but that's
like
why they're
all,
doing that on this planet is to keep everybody heavy so that they will pass
yes,
by. But you know what? They're losing that battle because we're starting to break free from that matrix. Sorry, I didn't mean to sort of jump in, but I'll
exactly.
let you finish your point and then we can go to a couple of questions. We have a lot of questions lined up and then we can.
Okay, if you that was pretty much my point. Is just,
Okay.
imagine yourself at a galactic party and like
At the cantina.
what like you being light, and you would more beings would want to come talk to you. That's my
Exactly.
point. Is
Okay.
that, when you lighten up, it becomes more fun too.
Yeah, but you see, the key word is light. You see, when you lighten up
Yes.
the light.
Yep.
So we'll just go quickly through some of these comments here. If you want to just sort of give us some quick answers there. So I have here
Okay.
from Draconi11, is the contact going to be positive? Quickly, I don't know how you want to.
My quick answer is going to say yes. Um, Humanity should be a part of our galactic family. Um, the fact that it's hidden from us is actually dark. So when we have open contact, it'll be lighter.
Great. And I have somebody here from Bruce Cornett. He says, how many abductees do not experience fear, but actually who desire such contact? In your experience, like in your research, have you?
I would say like 1% of abductees are not scared.
And I have here another comment here from Kit Vac. Kit Vac says, "With my contact with the mantis, he said not to judge them by how they look." And I mean, I would
Yes.
think so because, to be honest, I mean, mantis. Well,
Well, and My experience with mantis beings in the this small faction of the
Mm-hmm.
Galactic Federation that I work with, they're extremely intelligent
Mm-hmm.
beings, like some of the most intelligent in our universe. And um, what I was going to actually, this is something that someone asked earlier that I wanted to say
Mm-hmm.
is that, when you wake up in the morning and you're going to go, say, to the grocery store, do you think about what the checker is going to look like?
No.
Or you're going, I don't know, wherever you're going to go, do you really think about what they're going to physically look like?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't so much about our physical beings, it's more about the presence of the being. And I know when I come into contact with mantis beings, I feel an immense sense of peace. And and I just want to know whatever they want to tell me, like they're so wise. It's like, if you've ever sat down with, like, say, a monk or some sort of really highly ascended master on earth, and you just want to sit there. Like, you
Yeah.
almost don't even talk to
Yeah.
them. You
That's I
just
get that
want
from
to
Bashar.
be in their presence,
Yeah, I get that from Bashar as
And
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I think it's so much less about appearance, it's so much more about, like, the feeling you get when you're near these beings.
Yeah, that's I was saying. Yeah, when I listen to Daryl Anka Bashar, he's the type of person where I sit there and you just sort of, I don't know what it just is, but I just know that it's really that this message is coming from on high, and you just get entranced by it because you're just like, wow, all this knowledge, and it just there are times when you just sort of drop something, you're like, my God, where is this coming from?
It's
You know?
it's really true. And meeting him in person in a private setting, it was only him, Alder, and I. And we Alder and I set up our own cameras, and it was really funny because he comes from a production background and he's sitting there just watching us, and we're kind of running around getting the cameras ready and stuff. And I remember thinking, wow, he didn't even come with, like, a helper or something, like, he
Yeah.
just showed up, just him. And I was like, this is so cool. I love that he rolls like that, like, just
Yeah, he's
shows
cool.
up, and he's there, and he's kind of waiting. And then he said, he goes, well, who's going to hit record on the cameras? And I said, oh, well, don't you see, we have all our galactic family helping us, and if we're going to hit record, and then if it stops recording, they'll fix it, and he just started laughing. He was like, oh my gosh, I love this so much,
Yeah,
and I was like, it'll be what it is, it's
exactly.
but yeah, he just is so calm, and he's like questioning what we're doing, but also, like, very cool with just like, all right, that's how they go. I'm gonna go with it,
Yeah, we should all be that way, you know.
Yeah.
And so I have another question here from Penny. So many of us will meditate and will see beings. Preparing humans that may see beings in their mind's eye, I think, would be a beneficial as a way for the populace to remain open-minded and open-hearted. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, visualizing helps so much, and when we see them in our mind's eye or in dreams, they're there. That's it's a clear intuitive channel of contact. um
Yeah.
you know yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a very, very good point, and especially since we're going to be, working to be more heart centered. Because if you look at a lot of ancient cultures, they talk about the heart, especially the ancient Egyptians, the heart being the most intelligent instead of the mind. And yet here we
Hmm.
are in modern society being told, well, you have to increase your intellect, and there's nothing wrong with reading a book or being, smart and intellectual, but not to focus so much on that. I have an interesting question here from Vi. Krystal, I'm not sure I understand. Does your course open up our consciousness such that it will help us develop our ability to astral travel, remote view channel, and communicate with ETs, etc.? Did you want to sort of? 'Cause I'm going to
Hmm.
actually come back and ask you about specific points of the course. But if you wanted to sort of just maybe answer that one.
Yeah. So, the course opens your mind to consciousness. I don't teach any modules on how to astral travel or how to remote view. I think those are other courses, but what this does is opens your consciousness. And it gives you the ability to discern, connect, and ground your contact experiences. And I've found through my beta versions and then the early on people that have taken it, they tend to get, you know, into whatever it is beyond that they want to get into. So if it's remote viewing or astral travel or who knows,
Yeah,
whatever else they want, light language or I mean, there's so many things out there. That's what's so cool is that
exactly.
once you kind of can limit those fears and you're really going about your day in heart open way, like not even heart centered, but heart open. It can be scary for a lot of people to operate that way. And so these tools just kind of help you get to that point where you'd want to jump off and do all the other things.
Exactly. And definitely, I think that once you're open, you can do anything. So that's why all those
Mhm.
remote viewing, you don't even have to teach them because once you become open, you just automatically know what to do, right?
Mhm.
Another comment here from Bruce Cornett. He says, "When I lived with a hybrid human, Caradonian ET, her vibration influenced my vibration and allowed me to remote view and communicate telepathically. That was 45 years ago, after she died in 91." I'm sorry to hear that, but did you want to comment on that one?
Well, what I'll say about that is it's definitely important who you surround yourself with. I mean, it's a perfect example of when you're near someone with those high vibrations, you're able to tap into those fields effortlessly because your vibration is probably naturally raising to hers. And the same is true with the humans that, there are a lot of human hybrids amongst us. You may not even know that some people are human hybrids,
Exactly.
uh, like you may not even know if you're a human hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
It's but we all have a frequency, and those people that you decide to surround yourself with really, really matter. I know I've had to go through times in my life where even though I like another individual, their vibration just isn't matching mine, and I can't keep going down to that level if that makes sense
Yeah.
because I want to be up here, like I want to explore these cosmic things. And if someone can't understand that or wants to think it's silly or whatever, or is scared. I mean, I have a lot of friends who I'll start mentioning things, and these are friends I've had for years, and they'll just be like Krystal is too much. Like
Mm.
I can't, and I respect it that I'm not trying to tell anyone what to do, but I also know that that's not the type of person that I can spend every single day around
Yeah.
because it's not the vibration. But when you're around like that, the human hybrids, the high vibrational people, um, it makes a big difference. It really does.
Yeah, and it makes a big difference. And it's interesting because a lot of times we will have a guest come on the show and they'll say, "Oh, when I was growing up, people used to think I was weird, or, oh, you're Krystal, you're too much, and this and that." I had that too, let me tell you. And you didn't even have to open your mouth. It was just that the energy was just so different. And, I remember many times being kind of just looked as the weirdo in the corner. And sometimes you're passed up because a lot of people that are existing in the 3D matrix can't handle that, especially back then, by 20, 30 years ago, could not handle it. So what's interesting now, though, is that whereas before it was the weirdo, now I find that a lot of people are starting to, you can actually feel it. You're in the office and you actually feel people are different. Like it's yes, you do have some people that are stupid, but you still find that now I find that the people are different, and they seem to just, everybody just seems to be kind of coming online. Like you said, not everybody even really knows. They just sort of like, you're no longer the weirdo. And it's just kind of interesting how that works out, because when I look at that, I see that, well, this really is changing, because
You know, oh,
yeah.
I just thought of a interesting story that happened early in COVID when people started doing a lot of Zoom calls,
Yeah.
uh, my real estate partner and I, we were talking to a client, a husband and wife, and they were on their Zoom call sitting together. And for whatever reason, my business partner and I, we were in this like little small office, and so only one of us could be on the camera at once. And so she first sat down and said hi to them, and then she got up, and I went to sit down, and I sat in the chair, and I was smiling, like that's what I do. I'm like a smiley person. And I sat down and I was like, hi. And the couple literally went like this, like they jumped.
Wow.
I'm not joking. Like, and it wasn't because I was over the top. Like I wasn't. I just was so smiley and and bright that it surprised them, and they started laughing. They were like, oh my gosh, I don't know why we did that, but like you're just so bright. And I was like, wow. But that was a visceral thing that they had that they weren't prepared for.
Yeah,
Do you know what
absolutely.
I mean?
Yeah,
Like
no, I've had that too.
it
Yeah,
was
for sure. And the thing
it,
is that people don't get it, and so they kind of weirded out and are like, oh my god, what's happening? But that happens a lot of times. But do you find that it's now changing, that people are not like,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I find that people are much more like, yes. I think there's a shift going on, and I think that the shift is happening every day for people more and more and more. I see it. I also see a lot of denseness, and I see a lot of other things too, but I do see lots of progress. And one thing that I will say about open contact and psychic predictions is that most psychics and, say, channelers won't make a prediction unless it's 90% everything aligned for that to happen. And I know that say 4 or 5 years ago, no, say 5 or 6 years ago, I was not convinced that open contact would happen in my lifetime. I hoped it would,
Yeah.
but I didn't. I thought, oh, there's so much that needs to happen for that to become a reality. But then I'm gonna say about a year ago or a year or two ago, I thought, nope, it's
Yeah.
gonna happen,
Yeah.
and it's actually gonna happen sooner than I
Yeah.
expected. Um, so yeah, I think things are changing.
Yeah, no, and I had that too. Is whereas I thought, well, no, it's not going to happen. But I think, but also what I started to realize is that I started to get messages. Like I would ask, sometimes you're just sitting down quietly and you're just sort of wondering. You're like, and then an answer will just come to you. And I remember asking, I said, geez, what's going on? I thought we were going to have contact, and it's just here to came. It sort of hit me. And it says, yeah, it's coming. It's coming now, and you just hear the voice, and it makes so much sense that something's different. Something is just really, and I don't like the word it's off. It's not off. It's off in a sense that it's not 3D, and I think that that's the big thing. So what 3D usually feels like. How the usual how it goes. From day to day. And something is very, very different about this time that's off, in a sense
Mm-hmm.
that it's not going to be business as usual. So I think that that's sort of what, people are feeling. And I think that if you had, this is just my own personal opinion. I think that if we'd had this conversation, 5, 6 years ago, I don't know if people would be really here. I don't know if people would really be interested.
Mm-mm.
Maybe, the fringe few, but like, I mean, now it's really just out there, and it's interesting how the tools have come to play. Something like YouTube wasn't there 10 years. Well, yeah, technically it was, but like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't there in the 80s or 90s. Like, it wasn't just was not the right time. I don't think it would have been used the same way. And now we have what we, in some ways, the universal mind, because now we're putting that information out there. So it's very interesting. It's a very, very powerful tool in that sense, that we can promote this, and so many other people are also doing the same thing. And so all that sends out energy into the universe, because what we're talking about has energy, and
Mm-hmm.
it vibrates.
And oh, that's another thing that I haven't mentioned too much
Mm-hmm.
about the guided meditations
Mm-hmm.
is that a lot of it has to do with the alchemy of sound and vibration.
Okay.
And so embedded in each of the guided meditations, I have binaural beats. I have certain vibrations that are to help integrate with your body system. And like I said, you don't even know it's happening, but it's happening. There's a lot that goes into alchemy. I've always kind of considered myself a little witchy,
Yeah.
and I'm
Which you do.
always yeah, like cooking or creating tinctures or
Mm-hmm.
doing things like that. But our brain is and our bodies are are just a system that can easily be alchemized. And when you add in these frequencies and these vibrations, it can really unlock that DNA or that pathway that you might need, just like instantaneous. Like I do believe soon we will have occurrences so much more frequently of instantaneous healing, instantaneous knowing. In uh, we you don't need a lot of time anymore. Uh, Things can happen at accelerated paces.
Yeah. And you know what, though, on that train of thought, I think that definitely, I agree 1,000% that we're going to have instantaneous healing and everything, and the whole idea of time is already a construct that we created, and there's no real time. And I think that, and maybe it's just fantasy of mine, but I think that the idea, especially as we have contact, the idea of aging, the idea of time passing, I think is going to become irrelevant, because it's not, we're going to shift. And when you shift, the idea of aging or the idea of time passing is not really there. And
Mm-hmm.
so, does that mean we're going to live forever? I don't know if about living forever, but I definitely feel that, I see that, there's going to be a difference in the way we see time, and how we react to that, because I think a lot of the whole aging thing, yes, there's the physical aspect as well, but I think it's also because it's a state of mind, and I think whatever the
Mm-hmm.
mind, we create that. You know what I mean? And so if we
Yeah.
have an expectation that at 15 you're a certain way, at 20 you're a certain way, at 25, 35, that kind of thing, you're a certain way, you manifest that, and your mind sends that message to your body, and your body reacts. Now then, if
Yep.
we no longer have that mindset, there's no need to follow those rules. I don't know.
Our
But
body is really smart and it listens to us. I mean, our voice alone is alchemy.
yeah.
I mean, even just having this conversation is alchemizing our minds and our hearts to think about these things, to interact with
Hmm.
each other,
Yeah.
it's yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah, no, but see, the thing is that it'll resonate, because as we're talking about it, and before, if I were to say something like that 10 years ago, people would be like, what is she smoking? But now when I talk about it, it's sort of like, and I'm not saying because I know everything. No, I don't. But I mean, it's just more of like, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I can get down with that. And it's not a
Mhm.
weirdo thing. It's just that that's the new thinking. That's the new paradigm that we're dealing
Well,
with. You know.
I mean, I've heard studies that you can tell your telomeres, because your telomeres are the what make us age as they shorten. You can tell your telomeres during meditation to lengthen, and you will become a younger biological
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible. And people are doing it. I mean, and it all starts with what you tell yourself, you know?
Absolutely. And if there are people out there who watch Gaia and they know about Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about that. Dr.
Mhm.
Joe Dispenza has a
Yep.
show called Rewired, and he talks about how people lengthen their telomeres. I don't know, telomeres.
Yeah, however you
Telomeres.
say it, you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
But he talks about how people have, and they have it on record. And Joe Dispenza is no joke. He's not playing.
Hmm.
He's into the science, and so he says, "Look, we have it documented. We have it researched. There's no BS, no bullshit. He really, the guy lengthened his telomeres. If you lengthen your telomeres, you change your body. So there's no hocus pocus, there's no nothing. It's just that this is a way, like you said, you can tell your body, because the voice is powerful and everything's energy. So when you talk about it, you will it into existence. And so I'd have to sort of still watch that episode. I have to get there. But I think what he's talking about is that he was able to tell his body and his telomeres in his body to lengthen and to therefore change his body. Now, of course, it helps to have a clean diet and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, one of the things that people are talking about is that they're healing their body. And I mean, in no way am I trying to say to disregard your doctor or anything. I mean, you have to be smart about it. But anecdotally, for those who want to believe, Dr. Joe Dispenza is talking about people who have cured their diseases, and I'm not going to talk about which diseases they are because I don't think it's appropriate for me to talk about that. But just to say that if you have access to Gaia, which is a channel that you can subscribe to, similar to Prime or whatever, right? Netflix, that sort of thing. But it's all spiritual. And if you watch the show Rewired, he talks about how people have basically come back from very, very serious diseases and
Hmm.
and have changed their bodies. And like I said, yeah, it helps to have a clean diet and all that kind of stuff. Don't smoke 6 packs a day. But like, I mean, some of it, he says you don't have to be a slave to your genetics or anything. You can change
Hmm.
what it is. And so I think that gives us hope. And so if we can change that, then we can change our body, we can change time.
Yeah. And I mean, I've personally had moments of instantaneous healing, and I had a brain and spinal cord infection
Oh,
in
that's always fun.
2007. Yeah, and I literally died.
Oh.
I was in a coma, and when I mean, I don't know if the doctors would have said I died, but I was in a coma. And in my experiences, I went to another place. And when I came back, I knew that I was responsible for my healing, not anyone else. And even the doctors were so baffled at like how I even came out of the coma. Like they were, when I woke up in the hospital, all the doctors and nurses had hazmat suits on because they did not know what caused this. Like they thought it was a virus, and it was a mystery. And, they were taking all precautions because they didn't know if they could get infected. It was like this sort of weird thing. And then, like, a week later, I'm in my doctor's office and I'm like, well, what should I do? He goes, I don't even know how you're here right now. Like medically, nothing makes sense about you. Like, I don't understand. And I remember I was like sitting there and he's telling me like he doesn't know what to do. Like, if you feel fine, you're fine, kind of thing. And I remember thinking, oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be responsible for my healing.
Yeah.
And and that's actually when I started my meditation practice was in 2007 because of that near death experience. And I had some brain damage. I had, repercussions from the illness. But I was certain I could recover.
Mm-hmm.
And I started studying brain chemistry. I started studying how the brain develops. I started studying um, that about neuroplasticity, how how the brain can rewire itself,
Mm-hmm.
and I just realized like this is my responsibility,
Yeah.
and I don't think I'm the same person I was before that,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to be that old person,
No.
like
Yeah, exactly.
I I'd rather be the healed version of myself,
Of course.
I that other version of myself was it was different, and that healing process is very important, and I do think that if we can take control of our own healing processes energetically, and know like we have full control over what we're doing. We have free will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we can accomplish so much more than we know.
Yeah,
We have
absolutely.
a lot of potential.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you're talking about we have a lot of potential. What we've been hearing about a lot of lately is people are saying, "Oh, we're living in a matrix," which we are, but they say that
Hmm.
literally there's no actual world, that you're actually creating it in time, like in real time. And so sometimes you'll have two people side by side and they're having a completely different experience, and they're just not literally not seeing the same thing because they are not manifesting the same thing that the other person is manifesting. And
Hmm.
it just sort of like it gets, for example, there's a comment here from Draconi who says, with the state of the world, my husband and I feel like we're in the wrong place or the timeline. Now that is that sort of thing is a result of the media, the legacy media, like you're saying, and the powers that be that are programming us to see the worst. They're programming
Hmm.
us with the fear and the violence, and actually violence is going down, murders are going down, a lot of stuff is going
Hmm.
down, the planet is changing, but you would never know that because like you said, whatever bleeds leads. And they're going to give us the most anxiety filled type of things to chew on because that's what brings the planet energy, the planet down, but then that's also what feeds your concept. So yes, right now the planet seems to be going crazy, and I mean this is not even manifestation, this is just this is talk about fake news. Like yes, there's news
Hmm.
out there, but especially for someone like yourself who's worked in the media, there is so much that they're putting out there that is such BS, and that colors what we're seeing, that we're given the impression that everything is falling apart and everything's going crazy, but that's not really the
Hmm.
case. So yes, you can.
So,
Yeah, sorry.
well, I
Yeah.
have I have a really good example of a current situation that's happening right now. I don't know if you've noticed on the news that all of a sudden you see a lot of plane crashes, a
Yeah.
lot of helicopter crashes, like all these things happening, and uh, if you look at the statistics of plane crashes or accidents involving aircraft, it's actually at an all-time low.
Okay.
And on the news right now, it's the main story
Mm-hmm.
almost every day. I don't know. I don't watch the news, but I definitely hear people talking about things.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that these things are creeping into my feed, plane needs to abort midair, blah, 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 like
Yeah.
all these headlines about airplane. Well, do you know what is down right now?
Mm-hmm.
Travel.
Oh.
And it's because, so my theory is that one of the things that they don't want people to do is freely travel around the planet, which is
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons they had COVID, to try to
Exactly.
shut things down. And when you travel, things open up for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's just things you can't describe. You don't know what's going to happen when you travel, but you just kind of learn new things. You
Mm-hmm.
encounter different people. You put your feet on the ground in a different
Mm-hmm.
electromagnetic area that
Mm-hmm.
you're not used to. So you attune a different way. So travel to me in ascension is actually vital. Like
Yeah.
I think if people can get even the furthest away from home they've ever been. So if you've
Mm-hmm.
only been 100 miles from home, try to go 150. You know, like you don't have to go across this planet,
Mm-hmm.
but this media frenzy about talking about air travel, it's scaring people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's making people question, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't book that trip to Europe because the planes are crashing. Maybe we should just do a cross country trip,
Mm-hmm.
you know, across the United States this summer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But air travel is down. And I think it's directly related to these news stories about planes crashing. And I know I've flown to Europe many times, and just in April going to Rome,
Mm-hmm.
our flight was half full. I mean, we all had our own rows. And it was like, why? And it's all because of this fear, you know, and it's not real. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. No, no, it's not real at all. And that's definitely part of the fear factor. And so the thing is that also when you travel and you go to a different place, you also connect with people differently because maybe you're the type of person, oh well, I don't like those people or I don't like those people, and you have your prejudice and you have all that kind of stuff and you're sort of in this helmet. And the minute you travel, you start to see people are just human like everybody else. People are just like you, and so it also dispels a lot of the hatred between people because it's very easy to corral people into hating the group or hating these people, and using them as enemies. But when you travel, you open yourself up and you're like, oh well, these people are not so bad. There's why am I racist or why am I discriminating against this group because of what I heard at home. And so that opening up and seeing people as human being, I see you as I see myself, that is something that is a threat to
Mhm.
the establishment. So they don't want that for sure.
Well, and one more thing I'd like to add to that is
Mm-hmm.
that when we travel, especially to somewhere that is not our native language or that
Mm-hmm.
we don't know the language at all, we have to interact with people on an energetic level instead of a
Exactly.
language level.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of what we do is to talk, talk,
Mm-hmm.
talk, 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 talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, that's just what we do. We use
Mm-hmm.
language,
Yeah, but that's the
but
intellect though.
communication, what's that?
That's the intellect. That's why,
Yes,
and
that's
yeah.
the intellect. But communication is so much more
Mm-hmm.
than just words. And when you travel, all of a sudden, if you don't know the language, the words melt away, and you have to interact with people on an energetic level and in a way that, you have to use body language more. You have to kind of read people like, oh, is this a safe person to ask a question to? Or, all these things. So instead of communication becoming only language, like it does on our day-to-day basis, I think, it becomes more of a energetic interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And that type of interaction feels more how when I encounter beings, it's more that way. It's more of an energetic, and the um the communication is not with words, it's with telepathy, and the words are just implanted in, but it's very clear communication. It isn't doesn't get confusing. Like you're not confused like, is this a benevolent or a malevolent being? You know instantly if it is or not,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have a couple more comments here that I wanted to read. Here from Kitvac, there are many schools of remote viewing that utilize protocols developed by the military. Ubiquity University is the opposite. They work with Bertie Jaworski, who developed a
Mm-hmm.
technique called mapping. Are you familiar with this?
I'm familiar with Birdie's work a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to remote view from in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't learn here, and I learned from a group of energy workers, and I believe that the protocols that they use are much more aligned with Birdie's methods.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I I think that both methods are effective. Um, I I don't know I haven't done um the Monroe Institute remote viewing things on purpose. Um, I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't know what sort of vibrations and frequencies are embedded in their free material. And I just intuitively have like kind of shied away from that.
Okay.
So I think that's what I'll say about that. But from my experience and from people that have taken Birdie's class that I know personally, absolutely love her method. And I think it's very, very effective.
Okay, great. So we have here another comment from Bruce Cornett. He says here, when telomeres lengthen, their healing increases. Cells repair themselves better when telomeres are longer, for sure. And that's the reason why, as a kid, if you fall and you scrape your knee, you pop right back up again. And then as you get older, sometimes you fall and you're down.
Yeah.
And that's it. So we're all feeling that. I know I'm feeling that as well. But I wanted to know if we could go, because I definitely want you to give us the link. How are you going to be promoting the module, like the lessons? Is it going to be like on your website? Can you just tell us?
Yeah, it's on my website. It's on krystalkelley.com under courses. And I have the transcendent modules are the more advanced ones. And then I have some called Zen Voyage models, and those are I'd say intermediate. And the Harmony beginner modules are just real simple things that meditations that especially the liquid light meditation is a meditation I do every morning in the shower. Like it's just something, it's connecting to water, and it's something that you can do all the time. But I have it broken down into like those three kind of steps so that if you really wanted to go deep, look at the transcendent ones. And then I have the Zen Voyage, which are the middle, and the Harmony is like the beginner kind of courses. And I have almost all of them uploaded on my site. I have two more that I'll be uploading in the next week or so. But I think you'll see there's lots of different levels and different ways of jumping into
Sure.
this practice of preparing for contact.
Absolutely. So tonight we wanted to give people at least a little sneak peek of the tools. Could we possibly do like let's say for the Harmony, which is the beginner, could we just go like chapter by chapter, and you can just let us know what's in each chapter, and then when people come to the courses, they will know what to expect, or just sort of like a quick review. Is that okay?
Let me
Or
see. Yeah, I wasn't quite prepared
okay,
to
well
do
maybe
that. Let
not
me
not
just
chapter per
see.
chapter, but like you know what I mean. Just sort of go through like the basic
Yeah,
information
let
for the
me.
Harmony. Yeah, because
Sorry, my now I like can't find the. I have too many windows open.
no
It's my
worries.
problem. Um,
So what is the main
so,
tool? Yeah, sorry, go on.
oh, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so if you want to sort of go through, maybe just sort of give people a little bit of a rundown of the course, and then maybe we can
Yeah,
just sort of look at
so
one of the tools.
I think the best one to kind of give a rundown is the liquid light
Okay.
because it is it's just something that you can do at any time. It just is it's effortless.
Okay.
And
Could we do that now?
let's see. Yeah, oh, like do you want to do like a mini meditation? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
sure.
thinking?
Yeah, just sort of like,
Okay,
give
let
people like
me
the tools to sort of just get started. So like, tonight
yeah.
after the show, if people want to, are excited and they want to sort of, get the ball rolling, how could we begin? Like what tool would you
Yes.
recommend?
Yeah. So um oops. Oops, sorry, hold on.
Okay.
I wonder if there's a way to. Okay, hold on one second. Let
Yeah,
me
no
find
worries.
this.
So, guys, just to let you know that Krystal Kelley, really recommend that you visit her page. You can get a look at the courses, and you can also people can also contact you through your webpage, right? If they have any questions,
Yeah, through my
you know.
website, I also have a lot of the meditations. If you just want to look at them on YouTube, it doesn't have the full coursework, but you can just listen to the meditation.
Okay.
And that's what I was actually thinking we could do right now. I
Sure.
don't know if you can share the screen. Would they be able to hear?
If you share your screen, then I'd be able to stream it to the audience.
Okay, let me.
And while we're doing that, I do have a
Mhm.
question here from Vi. It says, does the course involve any practical or actual contact? I guess that would be the more advanced.
Yeah, I mean, I I I think it depends on the individual. I I know when I finish some of these meditations, I get downloads or things happen almost instantaneously. I also know that sometimes nothing happens, but then when I fall asleep, I have a dream about something, or you know what I mean? So um I don't know that I think expectations need to be just to allow it to happen. Not think too much about how or when. Um, I think that's the best way to
Sure.
describe that. Let's see. So can you see my
Yeah,
screen?
we can see your screen. It's like a YouTube. Oh, there we go. There's a planet there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me see.
Refresh and reprogram.
Can you hear it?
It's a bit low. Can you turn it up?
It is.
Find yourself in the presence
It
of
says
water.
it's max volume. How's it?
Okay, let me just see if I can't
Let's see.
increase my volume just
I'm
a
trying to.
second.
Whether you're standing in the shower, resting in a bath, or
It's
you
a
are
bit
near
low, but
water,
I think we get the idea
a
of what
river,
Okay.
you're.
or simply immersing your hands or feet in a bowl.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Okay.
Take a moment to settle in. Feel the temperature of the water against your skin, the gentle pressure, the
Andy,
soothing
can you
flow.
turn that up? You think maybe?
Close your eyes and take a deep breath in and out.
Can you turn it?
Continue breathing in and out. Begin by bringing your awareness to your body. Notice any place where you are holding tension or stress or heaviness. Without judgment, simply observe. Imagine these feelings as a subtle layer of dust or residue clinging to your energy, ready to be washed away. As you continue to breathe, visualize the water as more than just liquid. See it as a living current of cleansing energy, flowing with intention. Imagine the water that's touching your skin is seeping into your energy field and gently loosening the grip of worries, doubts, any self-limiting beliefs. With each breath in, draw in fresh, clean energy, an essence of renewal. With each breath out, release tension and stagnant thoughts, allowing the water to carry them away. Feel the flow of water working in harmony with your breath, washing over you, through you, around you, clearing space within. Now bring to mind any specific thought, belief, or emotion that you're ready to let go of. Picture it as a shape, a color, or even a word resting on the surface of your being. And as the water moves, see it lifting this energy away, dissolving it effortlessly. There's no need to force, just allow. The water knows exactly how to carry these burdens, breaking them down and neutralizing your hold. Once you feel lighter, imagine the water infusing you with something new, clarity, peace, confidence, or whatever you need most right now. Picture these qualities as light, softly merging with the water and soaking into your skin. Your mind and your heart feel the reprogrammed, fresh intentions, as if the water is imprinting your system with a new frequency, one of ease, strength, and alignment. Take a few final deep breaths. Inhale the sensation of being cleansed and renewed, and exhale any lingering fragment. Exhale any lingering fragments, knowing the water will take care of them. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes or lift your gaze. Feel the shift within, a refreshed, rebalanced version of yourself, flowing effortlessly with the rhythm of life. Carry this feeling with you, knowing that water is always here, ready to support a reset whenever you need it. Thank you for listening to Liquid Light.
So that's
That is amazing. What and there was like music, but there was also a solfeggio tone there. Do you what tone?
mm-hmm.
What tone was that?
Yeah.
Do you know what?
Let's see. I don't remember, but I know. I think I put it in here. Let's see.
Because that's really
Oh
good.
gosh.
Because I actually
Yeah.
felt that. I don't know
Yeah.
about you
Yeah.
guys, but I
No,
felt it.
each meditation I embedded things into it, and
Mm-hmm.
part of what I did initially is I just was given these meditations when I was in Egypt, but
Oh,
the alchemy of the sound,
okay.
I actually used AI
Oh,
to tell me what which beats and which type of binaural beats and which type of sounds and frequencies each one needed.
Okay.
So I used a little bit of AI and a little bit of my own knowledge, and then I really deep dove into like whatever AI told me to use. I like would, search up all the ones and I'd listen to them. And because I know sometimes with binaural beats, even if it's you're supposed to like it, sometimes you don't, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like,
exactly.
so I really listened, and then kind of I called it sound weaving,
Hmm.
but I wove together things that I thought would work
Hmm.
based on what AI suggested. So
Absolutely.
this has been, it's been a really comprehensive process to come up with all these meditations. It
Wow.
wasn't just like downloaded from Egypt. It was also, told to
Hmm.
me by AI. And I tried to use all the resources that I had
Absolutely.
because I think that we have a lot of information right now, and why not use these tools,
Hmm.
so
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And what would be really nice, because I see a lot of water there, and I'm thinking, pour yourself. It's a Friday night. Pour yourself a nice glass of whatever, or a glass of water, and sit in the tub.
Water.
And just sit in the bathtub and listen to that. Imagine that. That would just be like, yeah, I'm coasting for the weekend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that's on my YouTube channel. So you
Okay.
can listen to the meditations without doing the modules.
Mm-hmm.
It's just if you want to go deeper, the
Mm-hmm.
modules help because it you really set your clear intention. It takes you through like the whole process,
Okay.
but the meditations are great just on their own.
Okay,
Like,
great.
you
And
know,
and could you just
I think.
oh, sorry. Just
Oh,
now
go
that
ahead.
since you have your computer screen up, did you want to go to your website and show us where we could just see the module, just so people, I mean, we're here now.
Oh
Why not
yeah.
we can just sort of show
Um,
people
am I still sharing my screen? I can't remember.
yeah, I'm just going to share the
Oh,
screen
I
with
am.
you. Oh, there you are. Yeah, yeah, no, no,
Yeah.
but it's good.
So if you go to courses,
Mm-hmm.
right there,
Okay.
and then this is all programs, but then we have the transcendent ones, the Zen Voyage, and then Harmony beginner ones.
Okay.
Um, and those are uh, almost all my courses are in the big mind matrix one. But I have some courses like my sacred microdosing and stuff that doesn't have to do with the mind matrix. They're just
Okay.
there. But uh but they're all yeah, that's my
That's
site. And my
great.
YouTube channel is um at let's see. It's at Krystal Kelley 007.
Okay, great. Excellent.
Yeah. I've always considered myself a kind of a secret agent.
Good for you. And I mean, definitely, you're working with the secret source of dream weaving and of creating. So, like, I mean, I love that. And do we get to see your lovely face again before if we have any more questions?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Here,
there
I'll
you
just
are.
okay. Now can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you now.
Okay.
Okay, no worries. Just want to see if we have any more comments here. I have here Eternal Student. The Eternal Student says, "Hello, I know I'm late. I'm sorry, I was looking for it." So I just thought I had another comment here, but let me see. Do we have any more comments? Okay, so we don't have any more comments at the moment, but you know what though? I think that this is great because this the courses will really help people to really, and it's not only just to connect with higher beings, but it's also connect with your own source too. You know, because
Yeah.
I can only imagine the because I was listening to that and I was thinking, you know, the sound wasn't as good and I still felt like, wow, I still felt it. So imagine, you know, sitting in water, especially because water is such a conductivity, conducts sound very, very efficiently, and your body's made of water. So imagine sitting in a tub and getting all those tones, that would just be absolutely incredible. So that just like you know, I can see why you do it in the shower, because again,
Mm-hmm.
water and everything and all that. So that makes perfect sense. I do have another question here, and it's a good question. Actually, that was gonna be my next one. It's from Vi. And Vi said, "Is there somewhere where we can see the description of the modules for the Mind Matrix courses?" Well, I think we already did that. I think we went to the website. So if you just went
Mm-hmm.
to Krystal Kelley at
Yep, krystalkelley.com.
okay,
And my name is Krystal with a K
yeah,
and Kelly with an EY.
yeah,
It's but krystalkelley.com, and each module or each class has description underneath it. And then and you know, if you have more questions, feel free to message me.
sure.
I'm pretty responsive. I tend to be quite a busy person, but I try to stay up on my messages, and I respond to people, and yeah, reach out with questions if you have questions, because I'm happy to. I'm just here to bridge worlds, you know. It's it and we can build bridges in many different ways. So if there's anything I can help with, like I'm more than happy to help.
Well, that's great. And I know that this has been such an eye opening presentation this evening. And I can tell you that I'm going to be using those, that liquid light meditation. I can tell you that for sure. You know, this Friday, here I come. And, and I just wanted to know. You know, maybe at one point, if you have time, we could do like a Friday night, just sort of like just a quick meditation for everybody to come back and do a meditation. I think that'd be kind of cool. You know, let me know what you
That would be
think.
cool.
That would be cool, and everybody could be introduced, and we can talk more about the modules much more closely at that point. So that would be cool. But that being said, I know that well, like I've listened to Bashar and even and Cryon, even Wendy Kennedy, and they've talked about contact, and so we know we've talked about it this evening. Is there a particular group that's going to be coming into contact, or is it going to be the Galactic Federation of Light? I know we
Mm-hmm.
talked about, you know, we talked about different groups, and like, so if you have a personal connection, if you're working on that right now, you may have a personal
Yeah.
connection with the Andromedans or the Pleiadians or that sort of thing. But as the contact is going to be, from what I understand, global, is there a particular group of people that we can expect, or a race of people that we can expect to be the ones that initiate global first
I
contact?
Yeah, so I think so. I like I mentioned before, I work with a small faction of an emissary of light for this small faction of the Galactic Federation, and this work I've been doing since 2010. That's when the Galactic Federation first made themselves aware to me, and I thought I was writing things in my imagination when I was channeling it and writing it in my journal. And it wasn't until a few years later that I realized it wasn't my imagination and this was actually contact. So for a long time, I would be channeling these things and writing them in my journal, not knowing that it was actually real. And so from what my particular group is actually led by the mantis beings, but they won't be our initial contact. From what I've heard and what intuitively I know is that it will be most likely the Pleiadians.
Okay.
The Pleiadians are broadcasters, and they are very in tune with our heart center of humanity. And they also, when you talk about appearance, aren't so shocking of an appearance. So that's been my what I've heard and consistently heard, actually. Um, I have heard though that there are Pleiadians and Andromedans working together to you know, maybe and even blue avians
Okay.
um kind of maybe it'll be a group thing, because there are ships right now that are um hovering over Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're just kind of camped out, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to call it
Yeah.
that. And as our vibration on Earth is rising, they're more attracted. So they become like a magnet.
Okay.
And 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 then, you know, when dense things happen, they kind of go back up. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
this thing where we're in this. That's why it's almost impossible to tell exactly when this is going to
Exactly.
happen,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so in flux.
Mm-hmm.
But those ships have multiple beings on them, and there's some ships that have humans on them too. And that's
Okay.
something that I think will come out that a lot of people aren't aware of.
Okay.
There are some humans that are traveling with our galactic family already. Um,
And
so
is that because there are people that were abducted, or for example, let me ask you this, and you can give me your opinion. There's a lot. I think it was back in the late '90s. I can't remember, but there was this. I forget his name. He's a British guy who cracked into NASA and found that there was a alien space force that was already
mhm,
working, and
mhm,
they had like a bunch of officers that were off planet and all that kind of stuff. And I
mhm,
forget his name. Somebody knows his name. You know what I'm talking about? I think it's McKinnon or something, McKinnon or
mhm.
something like
That
that.
sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were trying to like, deport him to get him back to the US to like, all that kind of stuff. And, if what he was saying was not real, if what he was saying was BS, then they wouldn't be going after him.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's if somebody just says, the moon is made of chocolate bars, you're not just gonna say this guy's crazy and you go to call it a day. But they really went
Yeah.
after him, and he says that there's definitely a space force where people are out there working already with aliens. Now,
Mhm.
even people who are, for example, in Rendlesham, one of the things that Peniston said is that they saw, you know, they saw military personnel speaking with the aliens, like they already knew
Mhm.
that they were there. So
Yeah.
is that what we're talking about in terms of the
I
humans? Is
believe
there a
so.
space
Our
force?
government, I believe, and I've interviewed people who have been involved in the secret space program for decades, and I believe our government knows exactly what's going on,
Of
and
course.
or at least parts of our
Mm-hmm.
government. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I'm not going to say
Yeah, yeah,
everyone
yeah.
in the government knows, because there's a lot of people in the dark,
Mm-hmm.
but we do have United States citizens. We have world from planet Earth
Mm-hmm.
that are on ships going throughout this universe in traveling with other races of beings. This is it's not new, but it will become, I think, shocking news for some people,
Mm-hmm.
to when there is open contact and there are humans that are just already interacting with these beings. I think that will be something that is a bit of a surprise. And I mean, it is also one of the reasons why there's a slow drip
Okay.
of disclosure,
Okay.
because when you first find something out, it can be shocking, and it rocks your worldview. One of the most, I would say, big revelations that is going to come out soon is, and maybe many of you guys know this, but
Okay.
our moon is a satellite.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh
it,
yeah, we've
it's
known
it
that one.
was
Yeah.
made it
Yeah.
was made off planet, and it
Mm-hmm.
was pulled
Yeah.
into our orbit, and it's a base,
Yeah.
and there are lots of different um
Mm-hmm.
beings and activity. There's
Yeah.
so much activity going on in our moon.
Exactly.
And so, these things might seem shocking when you find out,
Mm-hmm.
like I think I mentioned to someone one time, like, well, the moon is a satellite. And they're like, well, it's called a satellite. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, it is a satellite.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it
and
is.
it goes against what people are taught in school.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
But yeah,
but you know the thing is that I forget where I was. I don't know. I was watching Ancient Aliens or whatever it was, and I was surprised. And they said that when they were doing experiments with the moon, they shot a rocket to see some. I don't know, to do out against the moon, and it rang like a bell. They
yeah,
said
they were
that,
getting a core sample,
yeah,
and it, yeah,
it
and the
rang like a
astronauts said it.
bell, and
Yep.
then they hit it again, it rang for 2 days or something crazy like that. And I just was like, what?
Yeah.
And it seems that this is not the first time. In the 70s there were a couple of books that were written. You know, is the moon hollow, is the moon a satellite? So this is something that's been speculated for a long time, and even NASA has it in their own records that yes, there's been things that we've done to the moon, it's been ringing like a bell. Now to have something ring like a bell, you know, and to have the dark side of the moon always facing away is kind of very practical. But one thing, speaking of remote viewing, is Ingo Swann. I think he did a remote viewing, and he was asked to go into the dark side of the moon, and he said that there were aliens there that he sensed his presence, and they were like, they kind of looked at him and said, what are you doing here, you know? And then like so it's, I mean, someone like Ingo Swann, who was a very well known remote viewer, says, I saw beings, different beings working together on the dark side of the moon. I don't know what more you want. I don't know. It seems to me that it's clear that the moon is not what it's meant to be, and I'm wondering, does the moon broadcast stuff to the planet? I don't know if there's stuff happening in that sense. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Well, I think it's very much like the way I see the moon is like an interdimensional stopping point. So you want to travel to Earth, you're gonna stop at the moon, you're gonna connect with, you know, the frequencies that you need to go to Earth, and maybe instead of taking your big ship to Earth, you just take like a little, you know,
Beam ship.
like commuter ship, you
Yeah.
know, like to Earth, and then explore Earth in that way. It feels very much like an intergalactic space station.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I see it. And I have also personally remote viewed the backside of the moon, and when I was there, it was like a big party. I'm not
Really?
joking. Yeah, it was
Okay.
like very jovial, very like everyone having fun. Like it wasn't serious. It was like there was music.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I, you know,
And I mean, there were
I don't
different
know.
beings partying. Is that what that
Oh
is?
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
definitely.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I learned something new. But you know,
I
it's
mean,
oh, sorry.
yeah, maybe it was like a special time that
Maybe.
I, you know, happened to be there. I have no idea,
Let's
but
see.
that
Yeah.
was my
Okay.
experience.
Well, you
And
crashed the party. Good. Good stuff.
yeah.
So I have here Eternal Student. Well, I think we already answered part of her question. She was asking, are those the original humans that are on those ships? One theory I've heard is humans may have been brought here from somewhere else because of our evolutionary places to advance for what science says. I don't know if you wanted to sort of quickly comment on that one, but
Well, I think my comment on humans, like using the word human, is that we're all a mix of all different star systems, all different all here's a really good example. My friend from Iran, he told me that when he was a little boy, his grandma told him that when a baby is born on Earth, they come from 7 different stars.
oh,
And so humanity is really a mix of the entire universe, in my opinion. So saying what a human is like is we're really just a bunch of different
yeah.
things, you know. And so yeah, I don't know, that's what I'm gonna say about that, because humans are kind of complicated. We're all sorts of things.
Yeah, we are all sorts of things. It's interesting that the lady said 7 stars. It's sort of like the Palladian system. The Palladians are made up of 7 sisters, the 7 stars.
Hmm.
And what I've been told is that even amongst the Palladian, the constellations, there are different groups of races living within the Palladian cluster. So it's
Hmm.
interesting. We might have that. I know that there's a lot of
And
Lyrans and stuff like that from different, you know.
Yeah, and even like say like the Zeta Reticulin
Hmm.
system where like grays are from.
Hmm.
There's so many different types of grays,
Yeah.
you know, and then we also have these grays that come from the future
Hmm.
that are highly spiritual and really distinguish themselves from the grays that are here now that, you know,
Hmm.
aren't from the future. They um wear special suits to show that they're like these very spiritual
Hmm.
um kind of ascended master type beings, you know, which are much different than the
Hmm.
grays that are here on earth and interact with humans, you know. So there's just runs a huge gamut of um of complexity and uh diversity. I mean, it's infinitely diverse.
Yeah. Just sort of like a question out of left field. I've heard some people theorize that some of the aliens that we are encountering are actually us from the future. So now that we're
I
talking about the
think that,
future. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's it extremely likely.
Hmm.
Um, I've heard that the most common place to encounter a time traveler is at the grocery store.
What?
So if you ever like standing in line, and I know this has happened to me, and you strike up a conversation with just a random person,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden you leave and I actually just got goosebumps thinking about this. You leave
Hmm.
and you think, wait, what was that conversation? You know, that was a strange conversation. That is very likely to be a time traveler that you just talked to, you
Oh.
know. It's the grocery store is just a place where time travelers know that it's easy contact. And you know, I don't know. So yeah, time travelers are
Hmm.
definitely in our universe on Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing though, I mean, before we call it a night, one thing that I know that because I listen to Daryl Anka Bashar a lot, I really like what he has to say. And one of the things that he talks about is that his race of people are sort of like a split between humans of the future in a sense that we have a choice to make whether we're going to become very blended with technology or whether we're going to maintain our humanity. And with AI coming up, and I just saw recently it was a car show or a robot show in Shanghai, and you see all these robots running around and like I mean they really look human and I mean it's kind of interesting to see it like it's literally science fiction. I've been saying for a while now, I think science fiction as a genre of fiction is going to go out of style soon. I think that its
Yeah.
days are really numbered because it used to be you could do the Star Wars and be like, oh, it's really cool. But when that becomes a reality, I think that science fiction is really kind of like the newspaper. I think it's going to really
Mhm.
have its day. I think it's the days are numbered. And I don't know. I'm concerned in a sense that we are heading too much into the technology, and
Mm.
that and while we can sit here in this group and talk about coming in contact with our humanity, I also have eyes to see, and I see this the robots and everything being created and getting more and more sophisticated. And I don't know. I'm a little concerned. I'm concerned about that. I don't know if you wanted to
Well,
comment on that.
yeah, I think technology can be concerning. I have a mentor, and her name is Patricia Ann Davis, and she's a Navajo wisdom keeper. And I asked her one time about technology because I really wanted to know what she thought. You know, I was kind of almost I really wanted to put my stuff on YouTube, but I was kind of scared like maybe it would reach the wrong audience, or I don't know. I just had
Mm-hmm.
like all these things where I was a little concerned. And I asked her about it, and she said, um, she said that technology comes down to intention. So technology is only as good or as bad as the intention of the person who's using it.
Okay.
So you could be using AI to, like how I said, I used AI to help me with my sound weaving of
Exactly.
my meditations.
Mm-hmm.
It was my intention to make my meditations more powerful and to help more people. And so I used AI with that intention of doing something good. And in that way, if you really think about it, that if the user of the technology has the intention, that's what matters,
Okay.
you know. And so if you are personally using technology with good intentions,
Okay.
it can't be bad.
Mm-hmm.
um there are people, because humans tend to have
Mm.
bad intentions,
Yeah.
that will use technology with bad intentions, but that is their world and that's what they're doing with the technology. So it really just comes down to our own personal intention with the technology we're using. So I liked it when she told me that. And I also, the other thing she said is that we are electric. Like our heart beating is considered electric.
Yeah.
So, you know, in a way, we are technology.
Absolutely, but we're technology. We have a, how should I say, a ghost in the shell, as it were. We have a spirit, and I think going back to what we were talking about intention, but also about manifestation. I choose to say, you know what, this is the world that I want to create for myself. I want to create a world where I'm going to be surrounded. I choose to surround myself with light. I choose to surround myself with only the good when it comes to technology. So even though I'm seeing a certain aspect of it, that's not going to be the manifestation that I'm going to create. I'm going to create a manifestation that's a little bit more heart centered. Anyway, I
Mhm.
wanted to just say thank you so much, Krystal. I've bombarded you with questions, but I really, really enjoyed speaking with you this evening, and I really love, I love what you've been working on, and it's really come quite. You've done so much since we last spoke, and I love the fact that you're doing these courses. I want to remind everybody it's krystalkelley.com. Is that it? Okay.
Yep.
And people can go there and find out more information about the courses and find out more information. If you have any questions for Krystal, you can send her questions. Like you said, you're always there to answer questions. And at some point, we should come back and do a nice Friday night meditation for everybody. I think that would be really nice. No,
Yeah.
no talking, no nothing, no jazz. Just really
Yep.
sitting down and doing some liquid light meditation. So we'll look forward to doing that. And
I'd love that.
yeah, and I'm also going to put her. I think I already have her website in the description below. So look us in the description below. You'll find her website. You can just click on that and find her
And
courses.
I also wanted to mention our Universe on Earth website. It's you, like the letter U, on earth.com.
Okay.
And that we have, I think it's a great website, and it really, you know, if you're into disclosure and into that line of things, and about individual disclosure and that sort of thing, I think you know, take a look and at least give a like on our Facebook page and our Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah, sure. And could
and
people
yeah,
send you their experiences, and they can send you their experiences? I know you're talking about people's.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be great. I mean, we're working on the first season of like what we did last year, but we're looking ahead also at the same time of what we're doing for the next season, you know. So the more people that tell us experiences and the more stories, just the more we have to share. So so we're really open to any kind of experiential story that you have, or anything that you just want to share. Like
Okay.
we're open.
That's
Yeah.
great, and that's good because, like you said, it's good material for stories, but it's also good for people to be able to reach out because, unlike MUFON. Look, again, like I said, I'm not poo-pooing on MUFON, but unlike MUFON, this is much more legitimate. This is a lot more. The word clean just seems to come to mind. It's clean. It's not filled with,
Well, I think we realized
military.
that disclosure is a healing process.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't really, like I said, it's not about learning and it is about remembering, but it's about healing. Like a lot of times these things can be scary, and if you can share it with someone else or with a group of people,
Mm-hmm.
it can be very healing. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we're all on our Universe on Earth project. We're all healers.
Okay,
That's
great.
our main goal.
Great. And Kit Vac is asking, what is the Universe on Earth email again? The website? What is the
The letter U
mm-hmm.
on earth.com.
On earth.com? Okay, so Kit, I hope you got that one. And I just want to say thank you again to Krystal for coming out and speaking with me, Krystal, and and for coming out and for speaking with us, and I think your program is great, and I think people should really check it out. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I know I'm going to be checking it out. And like I said, we'll be working with Krystal again to have a night of meditation and exploration. So I really enjoyed this evening. As always, please like and subscribe. Now, guys, there's a whole bunch of you, and not all of you are subscribed. Let's go. Mm-hmm. So please like and subscribe, and so we can get those analytics going. And we will be back next week with another show. But again, I wanted to say thank you to Krystal. Krystal, thank you so much for being here and for taking time. I know you're very busy, and we really truly appreciate it. So thank you so much.
My
And
pleasure. Thank you.
so I think we'll be closing up now, closing up shop. But I want to just say the all the information is down in the comments below, and you can reach out to Kelly whenever you have any kind of questions. And if you do have stuff that you want to share, I know that some of you are contactees, experiencers. If you want to share, just connect with krystalkelley.com on her site. Okay, so thank you again, everybody. I'm really thankful for you all being here tonight, and we'll see you next week on the next one. Thank you.
All right.
Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.